Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video day, and today we're going to be talking about the Houston Rockets potentially signing Ben Simmons. After the NBA trade deadline finished, it was reported that Ben Simmons and the Brooklyn Nets are going to work towards a contract buyout after the trade deadline, and it's looking like it's very, very, possible, most likely that the contract buyout between Ben Simmons and the Nets will happen. And there have been three teams to be mentioned for the Nets and, for Ben Simmons and his potential landing spot. Is it's been reported he wants to end up on a contender, and the three teams that have been named to potentially be landing spots for Ben Simmons have been the Los Angeles Clippers, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and of course, the Houston Rockets. Three-time All-Star, one-time Steel Champion, and 2019-20 season All-NBA. Also was Rookie of the Year in 17-18 season and two-time All-Defensive Player. Ben Simmons could end up in Houston. I know Rockets fans, some might be excited about this. Some might be pissed about it. I would love Ben Simmons in Houston. I was really upset the Rockets didn't do anything at the trade deadline, but this right here would make the Rockets a better team. I also want to note, before anybody starts trash talking Ben Simmons, I want to remind everybody that Ben Simmons played some of his best basketball when Ime Udoka was an assistant coach for the Philadelphia 76ers. And Ime Udoka was great for Ben Simmons as a young player, and he was, a huge for Ben Simmons' confidence, I think, and that has really gone missing over the past years, and I think that's what could, interest Ben Simmons in the Houston Rockets. And I think you've seen over the last couple of years as Ime Udoka as a coach for this Rockets team, I think he's built a lot of confidence in this team, just like he, built a lot of confidence for Ben Simmons as a young player. And so, look, I think scoring-wise, this guy's not a great scorer. He's not an elite scorer or solid scorer like he was. Like he averaged, when he was Rookie of the Year, he averaged 16 points per game. His first All-Star season averaged 17 points per game. The 2019-20 season, he averaged 16 a game. Never had a season averaging 20 points per game, but went as high as 17 points per game. Now we're seeing with Ben Simmons is he's not even reaching 10 points per game now, and that's been a real drop down. 6 points per game this season. Field goal percentage this season's at almost 55%, which for a guy who doesn't have a lot of I will say 55% is pretty good for a guy who I think has lost a lot of confidence and really does not trust himself anymore as a shooter or scoring wise. I would say 55% is pretty good for a guy who is completely lost his confidence and his trust in himself scoring wise. But his shooting percentage is down from last year, shot 58% last year. But scoring is not why I want this guy to join the Rockets. Me personally, I want to join this team because of, the history him and Ime Udoka have, obviously, but he fits this Rockets team with how good of a defensive player he is, averaging 1 steal and a half a block this year, but he's a great defensive player, and he's averaging 1 steal and a half a block this season, only 25 minutes per game, and not only that, but he's a great defender and a great facilitator and a great rebounder, averaging 5 rebounds per game on 25 minutes per game. He's averaging 7 assists per game on 25 minutes per game. He's still a great facilitator, if you ask me. One of the best facilitators still in basketball. So he's a terrible scorer. He has terrible confidence. But when it comes to facilitating and finding other players on the court and rebounding and defensive help, he makes the team better when it comes to those things. When it comes to maybe him being a liability, whether he goes to the free throw line or teams start fouling him late in the game to send him in the free throw line, he can be a liability scoring wise and really make it kind of like to the point where it feels like really there's only 4 scorers on the floor. But I'll tell you what, the other 4 players that will be on the floor with Ben Simmons can become better offensive players just by playing with him because of how good at he is at moving the basketball around and facilitating. So, it might be a liability because he can't score and he's a terrible scorer and has terrible confidence, but he will facilitate for this Rockets team. The Rockets have a real problem with half-court offense, and, that's a huge issue. Ben Simmons would help with that. Another thing I want to point out, what happened the other night with Amen Thompson with that terrible bounce pass, I would say most likely in that kind of situation, if Ben Simmons was on this team and he was playing late down the stretch, Ben Simmons, just like Amen Thompson, would probably be the inbounder. He'd be the inbounder in that situation because you don't want him to get fouled and go to the free throw line because he is a liability at the free throw line. Ben Simmons in that whole sequence would have been the inbounder in that situation against the Nets the other night when the Rockets had that terrible loss. And Ben Simmons, you'd never see that happen. And it's the same thing with Fred VanVleet because you'd imagine it, because it was, I believe it was Reed Shepherd, or no, it was Dylan Brooks that they tried to get the basketball to, but they didn't because Amen Thompson decided to have a terrible bounce pass to Brooks that then got tipped to D'Lo for a game-winning three, which was absolutely horrible. That never happens if Ben Simmons is the inbounder, and that never happens if Fred VanVleet is receiving the basketball. Because Ben Simmons is a great passer. He would have never, I don't think he ever would have done a bounce pass there. And if he did, it probably would have ended up in Brooks' hands. And then with VanVleet, VanVleet would have controlled that situation. So I think Ben Simmons would be good for this team, if you ask me. You got to find a way to clear a roster spot. Rockets have 16 standard contracts right now after trading for Cody Zeller. I imagine Cody Zeller gets cut, so then it's at 15. And if you sign Ben Simmons, someone has to get cut. Is it Jaden Springer? Is it Jayshawn Tate? Is it Jock Landale? Who gets cut for this Rockets team? Let me know your thoughts on the Rockets potentially signing Ben Simmons. I would love it just because of the facilitating part of it, the defensive part of it, and the rebounding. He makes the Rockets so much better in two categories that they're already so good in, defensively and rebounding, and he makes them better in a category that they need to be better in, and that's moving around the basketball and having good facilitating. Outside of Fred VanVleet, outside of Şengün and Amen Thompson and VanVleet, who really is injured right now and always, he's mainly been great with facilitating this year. Sorry about the dog barking, but I just think that he'd help with the facilitating, which needs some improvement. Look, we have great facilitators. Şengün's great with passing, and so is Amen and Fred, but I think you could use another great facilitator. But let me know your thoughts on the potential signing in the comment section, and peace out.